It hasn't launched yet? Starship mishap investigation finished. Elon Musk shares the documents. Ship 26 is getting ready for static fire. SLS unsustainable. Atlas V conducts the last NRO launch. And I have a very special person I'd like to introduce to you, so stay with me. My name is Felix. Welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. This is Starbase, the place where less than 5 months ago the biggest rocket ever took to the skies, and now another one is eager to light its 33 engines. In just a few days there have been so many plot twists regarding the second flight. Come with me to learn about all of them. Returning to our usual starting point, today we find ourselves back at the launch complex. Just mere days ago, Ship 25 was ceremoniously stacked atop Booster 9, and it seemed as if a launch was imminent. So much so that we weren't sure we'd even get another episode in before liftoff. Yet here we are, the rocket's still sitting on the launch pad. So what happened? What kept them from lighting the candle? Just before our last episode, a curveball was thrown our way. All marine notices were abruptly withdrawn. Aside from SpaceX's post confirming that Starship was ready, there was a deafening silence, making the once promising date of September 8th suddenly uncertain. Then a bombshell landed. The FAA released a statement reminding us that SpaceX can't proceed with any Starship launches until they obtain the proper license. More worryingly, they also indicated that their first orbital flight investigation was still pending. This set off alarm bells in our heads, as the statement made it sound like we were weeks, if not months, away from the next launch. However, in a rather surprising twist, just a few hours later, the FAA officially closed its investigation into the mishap. According to their updated website and a subsequent statement, SpaceX had submitted their final report on August 21st. You have to give the FAA credit. They've wrapped it up really fast. All the talk about the FAA trying to slow SpaceX down, toss that out the window. It is simply wrong. Interestingly, the statement revealed that as much as 63 corrective actions were identified, all of which must be completed before a modified launch license can be obtained. As expected, the report contains confidential information, meaning that it wouldn't be shared publicly, or so we thought. What's particularly noteworthy here is that these 63 corrective measures weren't ordered by the FAA, but were actually self-identified by SpaceX during their own internal investigation. The FAA's role was simply to monitor and approve these actions, a context that will become very important in a second. After the FAA's announcement, SpaceX released their own statement, shedding more light on the investigation's conclusion. As it turns out, during the first orbital attempt, the onboard fire had severed the communications between engines and the Starship's flight computer. This means that the Raptor's hydraulic pressure units may not have been the issue after all. Instead, the engines were essentially left in the dark, unable to receive any commands. The statement also confirmed issues we've already been aware of, like the issue with the flight termination system and the upgrades such as the electric TVC and the water deflector. In a somewhat confusing move, Elon Musk took to X to ask the FAA about the mysterious 63 corrective actions. It implied that they weren't presented to SpaceX, stirring a flurry of anti-FAA comments. But let's be clear, it was SpaceX, not the FAA, who identified these corrective measures. The FAA simply approved them, so this might have been a try from Elon Musk to get more transparency into the matter by making the FAA post the list. Okay, but it can't get more strange than that, right? Well, buckle up, cause it can. Out of the blue, on September 10th, Elon Musk went ahead and tweeted out the entire list of those 63 corrective actions. Maybe it wasn't so confidential after all? Breaking down every single point on this extensive list would be really time-consuming, so let's skip to the important highlights. Much of the focus seems to be on structural adjustments, particularly replacing various fittings and flanges with welds, a move Musk himself has advocated for in the past. Say it with me, the best part is no part. To address the issue of onboard fires, SpaceX upgraded the fire suppression system, a development we've discussed in earlier episodes. More than 90 new cameras have also been deployed to detect any leaks from the tanks or the rest of the rocket. The views during the second flight will be outstanding. According to that list, Booster 9 and Ship 25 have seen several valves replaced and certain bolts torqued to higher specifications to eliminate leaks. On top of that, the rocket has been fitted with a significant amount of additional insulation and a plethora of new sensors. It is a comprehensive overhaul, and it proves that SpaceX is deeply committed to learning from their mistakes. Ship 25 and Booster 9 are very different from 24 and 7. To address issues with the Raptors, the startup and shutdown timings have been adjusted. Additionally, the Super Heavy's hydraulic thrust vector control system was swapped out for an electric one. This, combined with a backup connection for the flight computer, should hopefully prevent Starship from spinning during the next launch. Other noteworthy modifications include an upgraded flight termination system that's already been tested, as well as the months-long redesign of the orbital launch mount. Most importantly, it appears that all these corrective actions have already been completed, with only a handful remaining for implementation for future flights. Does this mean that SpaceX is ready to launch the second Starship? Not quite. The modified launch license is still pending, although I feel it could be approved any day now. Unwilling to just sit and wait for the license, the engineering teams at Starbase continue to make progress. It seems like the goal of the first flight was full set, launch and see what happens. The second launch already looks very different. This time SpaceX seems to be focused on doing everything right. Make it count. In one of the previous episodes I've mentioned the addition of a third large water tank to the deflector system, but it remained disconnected for a really long time. Now we have an idea why. Recently the crew removed the manifold that connected the three large tanks. A replacement then arrived on September 7th and was swiftly welded into place. Following that, the third tank was finally hoisted and securely placed on its stand. Our speculation is that the original manifold was slightly misaligned. It was either a design error or an issue during manufacturing. That is why it had to be replaced. With the new component installed, we can anticipate a full water deflector test, this time a much longer one thanks to the system's expanded storage. Additional work is also being carried out at the orbital tank farm, with piping for the newly added subcoolers already being in the process of being installed. This leads us to believe that SpaceX aims to complete these upgrades before Starship's second flight. However, it is still an open question whether both the ship and the booster will need to be removed from the pad to allow for the system purge. If they do lift them, do not panic. Shifting our attention to the suborbital section of the launch complex, construction efforts continue on the perimeter wall around SpaceX's facility. Currently, there is no evident work on a new pad, but at least it appears that renovations on Pad B have been completed. Shortly after a road closure was announced for September 7th, a pair of SPM transporters made their way to the rocket garden to retrieve Ship 26. During its brief ride from the rocket garden to the launch site, our on-site photographer, John, managed to snap some revealing pictures beneath the prototype. What we see here is the complete set of 6 engines, including full shielding. So this thing is going to go to orbit. If you've been watching the last episode closely, something quite interesting should catch your eye. Notice it? Share your findings in the comments. I'm of course talking about the Raptor vacuum stiffener rings, indicating that this prototype is prepped for a static fire test. Shortly after, Ship 26 was hoisted and positioned on suborbital Pad B. This prototype definitely gives off SN15 vibes, lacking a heat shield and even flaps. I can't wait to see it on top of a Super Heavy. Depending on the timeline for Starship's second orbital launch, we might actually witness this prototype's static fire before the flight. Now let's take a brief walk down Highway 4 to examine the latest developments at the build site. Starting with the high bay, currently it's hoisting 3 prototypes. To the far right is Ship 29, nearly fully covered with heat tiles. In the coming weeks, this prototype is expected to move to the Rocket Garden, where it will replace Ship 28 in the engine installation queue. Adjacent to Ship 29 is Ship 30, which is still waiting for its heat tile installation, especially in the areas between the weld seams. At the far left is the latest addition, Ship 31. This prototype recently saw its nose cone section joined to the payload section, and as of September 9th, its forward dome section has been welded in place. This means that Ship 31 is about halfway through its construction. Clearly, there is no sign of slowing down at Starbase. Shifting our gaze to the Mega Bay, it's currently hoisting Booster 10 and Booster 12, though one of them may soon be relocated. Initially, it was thought that Booster 10 was back in the Mega Bay for engine installation, but it appears that some other modifications have been made instead. On September 8th, a test stand for Super Heavy was moved from the Massey's test site into the Mega Bay. With another road closure scheduled for September 10th, so 2 days before this episode even comes out, it's likely that Booster 10 will be placed on this test stand and returned to Massey's for additional cryogenic testing. You might be wondering why go through the hassle of moving an entire test stand. As it stands, the Massey's test site currently lacks a crane capable of lifting a full-size booster. Big crane. Thus, for the moment it is more practical to move the test stand itself. However, this could change in the future. By the time you are watching this, chances are that Booster 10 is already at Massey's. Back at the Mega Bay, as anticipated, the first segment of Booster 13, its common dome section, has been moved inside, marking the beginning of this new prototype's assembly. Lastly, progress has been made regarding the Starship human landing system mock-up located at the payload processing facility. This prototype was previously moved here after being put together from a variety of parts, including a repurposed Ship 22 nose cone. The mock-up has now received a fresh coat of white paint, but with it, it looks even more cursed than before. They even painted over crane attachments. One would expect a mock-up of this nature to be aesthetically pleasing, but for some reason that doesn't seem to be the goal here. What do you think? Is this an official mock-up created for NASA, or is it just some internal prototype to test out some systems? All ideas are appreciated, so please leave your suggestions in the comments. And did you know that YouTube sometimes unsubscribes you without knowing? Thanks to each one of you who checked if YouTube unsubscribed you. We've seen a massive number of people unaware that they were unsubscribed. Who knows, maybe you are one of them. Be sure to check that subscribe button just to be sure. While at it, leave a like, comment, and consider becoming a Y supporter, a group you can join for as low as $1 a month. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, now including aerial and ground photos of SpaceX's progress, and countless other extras on top. The next flyover will likely happen on the day you watch this episode. No matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. The link to our Patreon page is in the description. Thanks to all the supporters who help fulfill dreams for our team. We can't thank you enough. You rock. While we're talking about exploring the vastness of the universe, let's touch upon something closer to home, our digital universe. Ever felt like the internet knows a bit too much about you? Those spam emails and random companies knowing your preferences? That is because data brokers collect a bit more of your online identity bit by bit until they have that full picture of yours. But what if there was a guardian for your digital identity? Enter today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni acts as your digital bodyguard, reaching out to data brokers, ensuring your data's removal, and even handling objections. Think of it as your privacy's personal assistant. Simply sign up, empower Incogni, and let them work their magic. They even provide success reports. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and because you're part of this community, the first 100 people to use my exclusive promo code Felix will enjoy a massive 60% discount instead of 20%. Protect your privacy and help What About It at the same time? Incogni.com/Felix. On to some more space news. On September 7th, the US Government Accountability Office, or GAO, unveiled a report that casts some scrutiny on NASA's space launch system. The SLS has long been a magnet for criticism, primarily because of its notoriously poor cost management. Even simple components seem to suck up millions of dollars. The GAO's recent findings indicate that even high-ranked NASA officials have begun to question the program's financial sustainability. According to the report, one of the main issues with the program is that rather than tracking actual costs, NASA has been relying on 5-year estimates. They just make an educated guess on how much this stuff will cost, but then that can often differ from the harsh reality. For instance, these estimates assume that a 2 or more year delay in the launch of Artemis 4 would have no impact on the mission's overall cost. This claim is easily disputed, as there are things like salaries, costs of maintaining the infrastructure, and other expenses that continue to accumulate even when progress stalls. Moreover, the GAO report suggests that the costs of SLS production are unlikely to decrease. In fact, they may rise as new blocks or iterations of SLS are developed. To put the staggering costs into perspective, a single SLS launch is currently estimated to cost around $4.1 billion. That amount could fund approximately 62 Falcon 9 launches. But Falcon 9 is nowhere near as capable as SLS, I hear you say. Sure, here's a more apples-to-apples comparison. The same budget could pay for roughly 25 expendable launches of a Falcon Heavy. Although official numbers aren't available, estimates propose that this rocket can deliver around 20 metric tons to the moon. The SLS Block 1B cargo variant is expected to carry roughly 40 metric tons to the moon. This means that for the price of one SLS launch, you could achieve the same payload capacity using just 2 Falcons and still have 23 launches left over. Even when focusing solely on things like engine costs, the numbers are jaw-dropping. The 4 RS-25D engines used in SLS cost about $584 million per launch. To put that into context, that sum could fund the production of more than 2,000 Raptor 2 engines, assuming SpaceX achieves its price target of $250,000 per engine. Sadly, while the GAO report is enlightening, it's also part of a recurring cycle. Reports like these are released every few years, but they rarely lead to meaningful changes in the program's structure. Hence, the astronomical cost of the SLS continues to be more of a topic for debate than a catalyst for reform. Now, before I move on to United Launch Alliance and the mysterious silent Barker, let's get to the very special announcement I told you about. As you all know, we are very busy here at Y, and we have expanded the team again. I want to introduce you all to the latest member of our team, TJ Cooney.
Hey, thanks Felix. I am so excited to start the Y Freestyle Space rap channel. I think it's really gonna add some
TJ, I told you we weren't going to do that.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, what about the Space Pokemon show?
No.
The Zero-G Baking show?
No.
The Rocket Engine Cook-Off show?
No.
Okay, well, what am I here for again?
TJ is bringing his 10+ years of YouTube and filmmaking experience to Y. You may recognize him from his Twitter or from his YouTube channel I Need More Space. He's been a long-standing member of the Space and Y community.
Yes, Y fam. All jokes aside, I am so thankful to be joining the team to help us continue to create more content for you all and always keep you all informed on the latest things in space. You'll be seeing more of me appearing on the channel periodically, and I'll be involved in most things behind the scenes. I can't wait to nerd out with all of you.
Welcome aboard, TJ. We're glad to have you with us. Leave him some love in the comments. I am pretty sure he'd love to read it. Returning to ULA, September 10th marked a significant milestone for this aerospace manufacturer. After a scrubbed launch at the end of August caused by the tropical storm Idalia, an Atlas V rocket successfully lifted off from Florida's Space Launch Complex 41, or Slick 41. So what makes this launch particularly noteworthy? This was the final Atlas V mission designated for the National Reconnaissance Office. Codenamed NROL-107 or Silent Barker, this mission was a classified one, a project started in collaboration with the US Space Force. While the specific payload remains under wraps, we do know that Silent Barker is likely a constellation of spy satellites positioned in geostationary orbit. Its mission? observing spy satellites of other nations in the same orbit, which is rather ironic given the classified nature of this very launch. This Atlas V launch employed the 551 configuration, also known as the Bruiser configuration. Do you know what those numbers mean? No? Let me explain. ULA employs a pretty straightforward naming system, at least as long as you know the metric system. The first digit represents the fairing's diameter, in this case 5 meters or 16.4 feet. The second digit indicates the number of solid rocket boosters, which can range from 0 to 5. So 5 boosters on this one, hence the name Bruiser. This one was powerful. The last digit reveals the number of engines on the Centaur second stage. For this launch, it was just 1. The next good question would be, why the asymmetric placement of boosters? Doesn't this risk sending the rocket off course? Great question. Originally, Atlas V was designed to operate without additional boosters, relying solely on its first and second stages. However, as the development process evolved, a decision was made to add boosters for enhanced mission flexibility. At that point, the first stage was too far along in its development, and things like the thick liquid oxygen feed line on the outer body of the rocket could not be relocated. That is why ULA opted for asymmetric booster configurations. Thanks to the gimbal capabilities of the first stage engine, the boosters provide a net gain in thrust that more than compensates for any slight loss in efficiency from the asymmetry. It is a clever engineering workaround that has served Atlas V well. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to get even smarter about space and rockets, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Huh? That was wrong. On the top of a booster. Shifting our attention